Welcome to Wake Up Somewhere. Tonight, you're going to fall asleep in your modern bed and wake up in medieval times. In an English market town on a crisp late autumn morning in the year 1347, you settle into your pillow, the familiar hum of modern life fading as your eyes close. Within moments, the air around you seems to shift, cool and damp. You feel the texture beneath you change, from a smooth mattress to a lumpy straw tick. A rough wool blanket scratches against your skin. You can smell wood smoke and tallow candles, instead of the faint scent of laundry detergent from your sheets. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows, its call sharp in the pre-dawn quiet. You reach instinctively toward your bedside table for your phone, to check the time or scroll through familiar apps. But your hand grazes only a coarse wooden frame. There is no glow of a screen, only darkness. You blink and realize that darkness isn't absolute. Faint light seeps through gaps in wooden shutters. You search for a light switch, but your fingers meet nothing but rough plaster and timber. As your eyes adjust, you see you are in a small room with low ceilings. There's a chamber pot in the corner, a narrow window with heavy shutters, and thick beams overhead. The smell of smoke suggests a hearth downstairs, and the aroma of fresh bread wafts up from below. Welcome to 1347, you think, and you remind yourself that by dawn you'll understand why the church bells sound different here. It isn't only that they are rung by hand. The bells have names and personalities. You'll also discover a familiar object, a wristwatch, where you least expect it, and it will make you question how time moves in this place. But for now, you're fully present, lying on a straw mattress in a merchant's inn, feeling the weight of the wool blankets and the cool air against your face. You sit up slowly, aware of how stiff the straw feels. Your legs swing over the side, and your bare feet sink into rushes strewn across the floor. The air is chilly. The walls are made of plaster and wattle, the wooden beams dark with age and smoke. You push open the shutters, and a breath of cold, damp air rushes in, carrying with it the scents of chimney smoke and damp earth. The sky is just beginning to lighten with the pale blue of dawn. You hear the first church bell ringing in the distance, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates in your chest. This bell, in this town, is a signal that the day is about to begin. The pattern is unfamiliar to you, but it holds meaning for the townspeople. Your modern instincts tell you to seek out coffee, but there is no rich aroma of roasted beans here. Instead, you catch the smell of ale, yeast, and fresh bread baking in the ovens below. You pull a rough-spun tunic over your head, feeling the uneven weave. Your fingers trace the simple stitches. You find a pair of woolen hose and leather shoes and dress quickly, noticing how the clothing fits differently, less snug than modern fabrics but surprisingly warm. You open the door to your room, the wooden latch heavy in your hand. The hinges creak softly. A narrow staircase descends steeply, the steps worn smooth by countless feet. As you move down, you have to duck beneath the low ceiling. The inn seems alive with sounds, the crackle of firewood, hushed voices, and the movement of servants preparing for the day. At the bottom, you step into the common room. Long wooden tables and benches fill the space. The floor is swept clean of last night's straw, new rushes scattered to cover the hard, packed earth. The fire in the stone hearth burns low, the embers glowing orange. A girl, perhaps 13, is stacking more logs. The smell of smoke mixed with tallow candles fills your nose. A plump innkeeper, sleeves rolled up, kneads bread on a heavy wooden table. He pauses to wipe his hands on his apron and offers you a bowl of pottage, a thick stew of barley, root vegetables, and herbs. The taste is hearty and earthy, unlike anything microwaved. You savor it slowly, feeling warmth spread through your body. The innkeeper's wife moves gracefully through the room, pouring ale into clay cups. She reminds you that beer is safer than water in this era, brewed daily to avoid contamination. A group of merchants sits at a table, hoods pulled low, sipping their morning drink and murmuring about wool prices and shipments from across the sea. They speak of Florence and Bruges, of merchants who arrived from faraway lands, and of rumors of a sickness in the east. Their words are whispers, hints of something coming. But right now, the market beckons. You finish your meal, thank the innkeeper, and step toward the heavy wooden door that leads outside. The latch is iron, cold and rough beneath your fingers. You pull it open, and the door swings wide. A gust of cold autumn air rushes in, smelling of earth and damp leaves. Your first step is onto muddy, uneven ground. The rushes inside gave way to mud outside, and your leather shoes sink slightly. The sound of wooden cartwheels creaking echoes down the street. As you leave the inn, you find yourself in the market square. The early morning light casts a golden sheen over the timber-framed buildings that lean inward, as if trying to listen in on the whispers below. Their beams are painted in deep reds and greens, their plaster walls whitewashed. Thatched roofs slope steeply, some covered in moss and lichen. You notice colourful banners and signs carved with symbols representing various guilds. A boot for a cobbler, a loaf for a baker, a barrel for a cooper. The ground is uneven, covered in dirt and puddles from last night's rain. You step carefully, avoiding the deepest patches of mud. Chickens scratch the ground, clucking softly. A pig roots near a cart. Dogs of uncertain breeds wander through the crowd, sniffing at baskets of produce and meat. To your modern eyes, the market seems chaotic and unsanitary, but there is an order you sense beneath the surface. People know where to stand, which stalls to visit, and how to weave among animals and humans. You observe the clothing around you. A woman in a blue wool gown and white linen coif sells eggs from a basket. Her gown is edged with bright green embroidery, a sign of her status as a yeoman's wife. A merchant wears a deep crimson tunic that reaches his knees, trimmed with fur. He talks to a man in a brown rough-spun tunic, who is clearly of lower status. You notice that clothing indicates a hierarchy: the length, the colors, the materials. Children dart between stalls, wearing simple tunics with bare feet despite the cold. You hear a man hawking his wares, pewter plates and cups shining dully in the early light. He beats the plates lightly with a stick to show their resilience. Nearby, a woman arranges bright orange carrots and onions on a rough board. You realize the vegetables look unfamiliar, not because they are rare, but because there is no sign of potatoes or tomatoes, crops you're accustomed to in your time. Instead, there are parsnips, turnips, leeks, cabbages, and different varieties of beans, all harvested in late autumn. As you wander past the vegetable stalls, the smell of leather draws your attention. You turn to see a tanner displaying boots and belts. The leather is dyed deep brown and black, and the smell is strong, sharp, earthy, with hints of the tanning process involving urine and animal brains. Just beyond him, a woman sits behind a table of rough textiles. She weaves wool into cloth using a simple loom. The threads are dyed with plant-based colors: woad for blue, madder for red, and weld for yellow. The colors are muted but varied, not the brown and grey you might expect. You pause to listen to a group of musicians. They play lutes and simple drums. The melody is lively, and people smile as they pass. A boy about 10 years old spins a hoop with a stick, running through the crowd, laughing. A mother scolds him gently, then hands him a small loaf of bread to quiet him. You realize how common it is to see children playing and working in the streets. The roosters that crowed earlier continue their call. Above the chatter of the market, you hear the church bells toll again, this time in a different pattern. A sequence of tones that you can't fully decipher, but which the townspeople clearly understand. They pause to listen, their expressions attentive. Some cross themselves. You remember the hint. By dawn you'll understand why the church bells sound different. The bells are communicating with the town. On the edge of the square, you see a merchant selling spices. He speaks with an accent that marks him as foreign. His spices are expensive: saffron, cinnamon, pepper, all imported from faraway lands like India and the Middle East. You pick up a small pouch of pepper and inhale. The scent is sharp and invigorating. For a moment, you recall the smell of modern pepper grinders, realizing that in your own time, these spices are commonplace. Yet in this era, they are precious and reserved for the wealthy. Feeling curious, you move toward a crowd gathered around a storyteller. He stands on a wooden crate, gesturing wildly as he recounts a tale of a knight who slays a dragon and wins the hand of a princess. His voice carries over the noise, and the children and adults listen with rapt attention. Most of them are illiterate. Storytelling and oral tradition are their news and entertainment. The man weaves humor and suspense, his words painting vivid images. You find yourself drawn in despite knowing the story's motifs. After listening to the storyteller for a while, you continue exploring. You find a stall where a blacksmith works. His forge is a glowing bed of coals. He hammers metal with a heavy rhythm, sparks flying, shaping a horseshoe. Sweat beads on his brow, and his arms are muscular from his labor. The sound of the hammer striking anvil is rhythmic and satisfying, and people gather to watch. You notice the blacksmith uses a large bellows to feed air into the fire. The smell of burning charcoal and heated metal fills the air. Close by, a cooper, a barrel maker, is assembling wooden staves. He shapes each piece with a small plane, fitting them together with precision. He binds them with iron hoops, testing the strength by slapping the side of the barrel. The cooper is proud of his craft, and several finished barrels stand upright, ready for sale. You consider how essential barrels are in this era for storing everything from ale to salted fish. A chandler sells candles made of tallow and beeswax. You pick up a beeswax candle and inhale its sweet scent, noticing the honeyed aroma. Tallow candles, by contrast, smell faintly of animal fat. These are the candles that will light homes and churches in the evening, long after the sun sets behind the hills. You realize how different the nights must be here, lit only by candles and hearths. Further along, you see a tanner's stall. Hides hang from wooden posts, drying. The process is smelly and messy, using line and urine to remove hair and soften hides. The tanner's hands are stained, and his clothing is more worn than those of other craftsmen. People keep a respectful distance from his stall, both because of the smell and because tanners are considered lower status due to the unclean nature of their work. But without them, there would be no leather for shoes, belts, or harnesses. You pause at a baker's stall. He has small round loaves of bread arranged in rows. The bread looks dense, made from a mixture of barley, wheat, and rye. You reach out, feel the crust. It's firm, the inside likely hearty and chewy. The baker explains that in his time, bread is often baked at communal ovens. People bring their dough to bake. The ovens are owned by the Lord or the church, and families pay a fee or give a portion of their bread. He offers you a piece to taste. It's hearty and slightly sour, with a satisfying chew. You realize there is no smell of coffee anywhere. Instead, the hot drink of choice is ale, or sometimes warmed wine with spices. You hear someone talk about mead, honey wine. Without your modern cup of caffeine, your mind feels more attuned to the environment. The crispness of the air, the texture of the wool, the smell of damp earth, and the sound of voices become more vivid. You walk to the edges of the market square where there's less noise. Here, you notice a row of stalls with live animals. Chickens cluck in wicker cages, rabbits in wooden pens. A man sells pigs, the animals squealing as he lifts them into a cart. A woman leads a goose by a string. The animals will be sold alive, to be slaughtered later. In the absence of refrigeration, food must be consumed or preserved quickly. Not far from the livestock stores, a group of women sit spinning wool into yarn using drop spindles. Their fingers twist and pull, converting fleece into thread. They work swiftly, their hands moving in practiced rhythm. They laugh and gossip, their voices carrying over the whir of the spindle. They speak of their families, of preparing for winter, of a neighbor's new baby. They mention that life expectancy is often said to be short, but if you survive childhood, it's common to live into your 60s. Their words remind you that despite the era, human connections and aspirations are timeless. At another stall, you see a large stone with grooves carved into it. A man is demonstrating how to sharpen knives and scythes. He moves the blade across the stone in steady strokes, water drizzling onto the surface to keep it cool. The smell of wet stone and metal mingles with the air. People hand him their tools, and he sharpens them for a few coins. You wander past a small structure, an oven where women are baking bread. Communal ovens were common in this era, and women gather here to bake loaves for their families. The oven is massive, built of brick. They slide long paddles into the mouth of the oven, checking the bread. The smell of baking bread is intoxicating, and you note that the bread will not only feed their families, but also serve as payment for rent or taxes to the Lord. As the sun rises higher, the market square grows busier. People from surrounding villages arrive with their goods. A man drives a cart filled with barrels of apples. He shouts a greeting to someone he knows. A woman carries bundles of flax. A group of children runs past you, their cheeks rosy from the cold, playing a game with sticks and a hoop. You overhear a conversation between two men about the coming winter. They discuss storing grain and preserving meat with salt. They mention the three-field system, how fields are rotated each year between winter crops, spring crops, and fallow to maintain soil fertility. They talk about the heavy plough drawn by oxen that turns over the heavy clay soil of England, allowing them to cultivate more land. You realize that medieval people are not primitive. They have innovations and systems that are sophisticated for their time. You turn a corner and see a group of women gathered around a cart filled with herbs. A herbalist is selling sage, thyme, rosemary, and other medicinal plants. She describes their uses: sage for sore throats, thyme to ward off illness, rosemary for memory. She carefully bundles herbs with twine and hands them to customers. You recall your modern medicine cabinet and marvel at how these people rely on plants and knowledge passed down through generations. Walking further, you come across a man with a wooden tray of trinkets. He sells small carved wooden figures, simple jewelry made from glass beads, and bone combs. He holds up a comb, showing its fine teeth, explaining how it helps keep lice at bay. Personal hygiene in medieval times is better than many modern myths. People bathed in public bathhouses, used twigs or rags to clean their teeth, and took pride in cleanliness. A loud bell rings, longer and more intense than earlier. People stop in their tracks. You look up, trying to see the bell tower through the rooftops. The pattern is different, faster, with a distinct tone. The crowd murmurs, and a woman whispers that this pattern signifies that the Lord Steward is coming to collect rents. You watch as a man on horseback, wearing a fur-trimmed cloak, rides through the square. He is followed by servants carrying sacks and ledgers. People approach him with coins and goods, paying their due. The bell pattern holds meaning, and each person understands it without words. You feel a sense of awe at the complex system of communication via bells. Bells mark births, deaths, fires, attacks, and festivals. They regulate time. There are no clocks here, except sundials and hourglasses for the wealthy. So the bells are the heartbeat of the town. By dawn, you will know why the church bells sound different. Each one is named, each has a personality, and each pattern tells a story. You continue exploring, and your eyes fall on a small, narrow alleyway between two buildings. It leads to the back of the inn where you slept. You follow it, curious. The alley is muddy, and you see footprints left by many boots. A cat darts across, chasing a mouse. As you walk, you glance down at the ground. There, half buried in mud and straw, something glints in the morning light. You bend down and pick it up. It is a wristwatch. It looks modern, with a leather strap and a round face. How did this get here? It's your wristwatch. You recognize the small scratch on the band, the subtle crack on the glass. You realize you must have lost it when you arrived. You slip it onto your wrist and stare at the face. The hands tick steadily, but the time seems wrong. It's 2 hours ahead of what you believed it to be. You wonder if time moves differently here, or if the watch is affected by something else. This modern object is incongruous in your medieval surroundings. You decide to keep it hidden under your sleeve. The discovery of your watch re-engages your curiosity. You feel a rush of excitement, a sense that this place holds more mysteries than you imagined. You took the watch away, and as you stand, you notice a monk walking down the main street. He wears a brown wool habit tied with a rope belt. His head is tonsured, shaved on top with hair around the edges. He carries a basket filled with apples and bread, perhaps for charity or for his monastery. He moves with purpose, You watch as the monk stops to speak with a vendor. He gestures toward the castle village at the edge of town, his face serious. The vendor nods. You catch snippets of their conversation about the steward and the lord, about a noble's upcoming visit. The monk seems to be in a hurry, but his demeanor is calm. He looks around, notices you, and gives a slight nod. There is something in his eyes, an invitation to follow perhaps. You decide to walk after him, drawn to what lies beyond the market. The path to the castle village winds away from the market square. The buildings become more stone than timber, indicating wealth and status. The road is still dirt, but it's wider here, worn by carts and horses. The monk walks at a steady pace, and you keep your distance so as not to startle him. The sounds of the market fade behind you, replaced by the softer sounds of your own footsteps, the clatter of horses' hooves, and the murmured prayers of the monk. As you walk, you notice the defensive walls of the castle village rising up. Thick stone walls with narrow slits for archers encircle the area. Guards stand at the gate, dressed in chainmail and leather. They carry spears. Their eyes scan everyone who enters. The gate is open for now, the drawbridge lowered over a dry moat. You cross the threshold and feel the weight of centuries in the stones beneath your feet. Inside the walls, the village is bustling. Children play with wooden hoops near a large stone well. Women carry water in buckets, balanced on yokes across their shoulders. Chickens peck at the ground. A group of boys kicks a leather ball, laughing as they chase it. The buildings here are more substantial, made of stone rather than timber, with slate roofs. You sense that those who live within the castle walls enjoy more protection and perhaps higher status. You follow the monk past the well and into the craftsman's quarter. The sounds and smells here are distinct. The blacksmith's hammer rings louder, echoing off stone walls. The cooper taps metal hoops into place. You smell hot iron, wood shavings, and the dampness of recently tanned leather. Craftsmen gather at their workshops, proud of their work. Guild signs hang outside each shop. Each craftsman belongs to a guild, and guild pride runs deep. You overhear two coopers joking about whose barrels will hold more ale without leaking. You watch the blacksmith shape iron into nails, essential for construction. He lifts the glowing bar from the forge with tongs, places it on the anvil, and strikes quickly with his hammer. Sparks fly, and the smell of hot metal is strong. The blacksmith's apprentice pumps the bellows, feeding air to the coals. The apprentice is no older than 13, his face smudged with soot. He watches the master closely, learning the craft that will define his life. Next to the blacksmith, a cooper works on a barrel. He uses a draw knife to shape each stave, smoothing the wood into curved pieces. He fits them together, aligning the grain. He wraps iron hoops around the outside and hammers them down, ensuring the barrel is tight. His hands are strong, and his movements are fluid. Barrels are essential for storing wine, ale, salted meat, and grains. The cooper's work is vital to the community's survival. You turn toward the tanner's yard. The smell is nearly overwhelming. Hides hang from wooden frames, scraped clean of hair. The tanner and his apprentices soak skins in lime, then scrape away any remaining tissue. They soak them in pits of urine and animal brains to soften them. The smell of rotting flesh and chemicals lingers in the air. The tanner's clothes are stained, and he seems isolated from the other craftsmen. Yet without him, there would be no leather goods. A chandler's workshop is next. Here, the making of candles seems almost serene compared to the tannery. Long strands of wick hang from wooden racks. The chandler dips each wick into hot tallow, waits for it to cool slightly, then dips again, building up layers until a candle forms. The smell of tallow is pungent, but less offensive than the tannery's odors. Beeswax candles are also made here, their sweet aroma filling the space. Beeswax candles burn cleaner and longer, but they're more expensive, reserved for the wealthy and for church services. You wander by a wheelwright's shop. The wheelwright shapes spokes and rims for carts. He uses seasoned wood and iron bands. He fits each piece together meticulously, ensuring that the wheels are perfectly round and sturdy. Without quality wheels, carts cannot travel far, and trade would suffer. You watch as he sets an iron rim on a fire to expand it, then fits it over the wooden wheel. When the iron cools, it contracts, tightening around the wood. You move toward a communal garden near the craftsman's quarter. Women tend to rows of vegetables and herbs. They harvest cabbages, leeks, and beets. A young girl waters plants using a clay pot. You see a boy carrying a bundle of sticks for kindling. He stops to watch you, curious. You smile, and he runs back to his mother. The sense of community is strong here. Everyone works together to ensure survival. You pass by a group of children playing. They roll hoops with sticks, toss stones in a game of knucklebones, and play tag. Their laughter fills the air. They have no toys like those you might recognize. No plastic, no electronic games. Instead, they use what the environment offers. A little girl holds a rag doll made from scraps of cloth. She cradles it gently, humming a simple tune. The innocence of childhood transcends time. As you walk further, you notice a group of women at a communal oven near the castle kitchens. They slide dough into the open mouth of the oven. The ovens are large enough to accommodate multiple loaves at once. Women talk as they wait, discussing their families, the harvest, and upcoming festivals. One mentions St. Martin's Day, a festival marking the end of the agrarian year when people celebrate with feasting. You overhear a craftsman talking about guild laws and apprenticeships. He explains that becoming a master requires years of training, starting as an apprentice at around age 12, living with the master, and learning the trade. Apprenticeship lasts about 7 years, after which the apprentice becomes a journeyman. Only after producing a masterpiece can the journeyman become a master and open his own shop. You realize this system ensures quality and consistency. You continue along the cobbled street and see a group of men and women gathered around the board on a wall. It's the guild hall. On the board are notices written in Latin and Middle English, information about the market, guild regulations, and announcements. Most people cannot read, so the notices are read aloud by someone who can. The man reading stands tall, his voice carrying across the square. He reads announcements about taxation, about a coming fair, and about a new decree from the king. A woman approaches the monk you are following. She holds a sick child and asks for prayers and herbs. The monk listens kindly, takes her hand, and says he will pray at the monastery. He gives her a small bundle of herbs, likely sage or thyme, and tells her how to make a soothing tea. The woman thanks him and hurries away. The monk continues walking, and you keep pace. You see the castle keep rising up, a massive stone structure within the walls. It is both a fortress and a symbol of the Lord's power. Guards move about, adjusting armor, sharpening swords. They watch everyone with careful eyes. The Lord's Hall stands adjacent, built of timber but grander than any house you've seen. Smoke rises from its chimney. Nobles and their retainers live here, separate from the common folk. The hierarchy is rigid. The monk pauses at the gate to the castle courtyard. A guard stops him, but the monk is recognized and allowed to enter. You hesitate, but the guard sees you and the monk gestures for you to follow. You step into the courtyard, noticing the changes. The ground is cobblestone. The air smells of horses and straw. Stables line one side. A group of young squires practices swordplay under the watchful eye of a master-at-arms. Inside the courtyard, you see the social hierarchy more clearly. Noble women in rich gowns trimmed with ermine walk with their ladies-in-waiting. They wear colours that are restricted by sumptuary laws, which dictate who can wear what. A nobleman rides a horse, his cloak lined with fur. He commands attention and respect. Servants rush to and fro, carrying baskets of food and armfuls of firewood. The monk directs your attention to a small chapel within the courtyard. He leads you inside. The chapel is simple but beautiful. Stone walls, wooden pews, and a small altar adorned with candles and a carved crucifix. Sunlight filters through a small stained-glass window, casting colored patterns on the stone floor. The air is cool and smells of incense. The monk kneels to pray. You sit quietly, reflecting on the complexity of this society. It is far from the dark, dirty, and ignorant world often depicted in popular culture. There is order, innovation, and a strong sense of community. People know their roles and rely on one another. They laugh, work, and worship. They face hardships but also enjoy pleasures. Music, storytelling, bright clothing, and the taste of freshly baked bread. As you leave the chapel, the monk speaks to you for the first time. He asks if you have heard the bells and whether you understand them. You shake your head. He smiles and tells you that each bell has a name and a distinct tone. They are rung by hand in patterns that convey messages: births, deaths, fires, celebrations, danger. He promises to show you the bell tower soon. The monk invites you to walk with him toward the monastery just outside the castle walls, where the bells are kept. As you leave the castle through a side gate, you return to the road, now heading away from the market and the craftsman's quarter. The road runs alongside fields that lie fallow after the harvest. Sheep graze, their wool thick in preparation for winter. Geese peck at the grass. The sky is overcast, the air crisp. You walk in silence for a while, the rhythmic sound of your footsteps and the monk's soft prayers filling the air. After a few minutes, you reach the monastery. It is a complex of stone buildings surrounded by a low wall. A gate opens into a courtyard. The buildings are sturdy, with simple wooden shutters on the windows. The air here feels peaceful. You smell herbs and fresh earth. The monks have gardens and orchards, which you'll explore later. You enter the monastery courtyard. To one side is the scriptorium, where monks copy manuscripts. To another is the refectory, where they eat. The dormitory is on the second floor. The garden lies beyond, filled with medicinal herbs and vegetables. The bell tower looms above everything, its wooden structure strong and graceful. The monk you have been following stops and turns to you. He tells you that they will ring the bells again at noon, and he will take you up the tower then. For now, he suggests you explore the monastery gardens and the scriptorium. You agree. As you part, you look back at the market town in the distance, thinking of the bustling life there, the colors, sounds, and smells. You feel grateful for the calm that surrounds you now. You step toward the gardens. Rows of herbs grow neatly: sage, rosemary, thyme, lavender, and dill. The monks use these for medicinal purposes. There are also vegetables: cabbages, leeks, peas, and beans. The soil is dark and rich. You see bees buzzing around the lavender, their hum soft and calming. A monk tends to the plants, his hands gentle. He explains that the herbs are used to treat ailments. Yarrow stops bleeding. Mint soothes stomach aches. You listen, appreciating the knowledge passed down through generations. Beyond the garden, you see an orchard. Apple trees stand in neat rows, their branches heavy with late fruit. Some apples are small and tart, others larger and sweet. You pick one and take a bite. The taste is crisp and tangy. A monk tells you that apples are stored in cellars to be eaten throughout winter. He also shows you pear and plum trees, which are now bare. They will bloom again in spring. After exploring the garden and orchard, you walk toward the scriptorium. Inside, the air smells of parchment, ink, and beeswax. Long wooden tables hold manuscripts, quills, and ink pots. Monks sit on benches, bent over their work. They copy texts meticulously, letter by letter, often illuminated with gold and bright pigments. The pages are illuminated with vines, flowers, and mythical creatures. It is a laborious process, but one that preserves knowledge. A monk shows you a newly finished page. The Latin script is flowing and elegant. He points to the colored capital letters, adorned with gold leaf. He explains that the pigments come from ground minerals and plants: lapis lazuli for blue, vermilion for red, and malachite for green. These materials are expensive and treasured. The parchment is made from animal skin, scraped and stretched. It takes a full day to prepare a single sheet. You leave the scriptorium and return to the courtyard. The bell tower stands ahead, tall and inviting. You know you'll climb it soon. But first, you take a moment to sit by a fountain in the courtyard. Water flows from a carved stone spout into a basin, creating a gentle, constant sound. The water is clear and cold. You cup your hands and take a drink. It tastes fresh, drawing from a spring. You feel refreshed. The courtyard is quiet. Monks move silently, their feet barely making a sound on the stone. One monk passes with a basket of apples. Another carries a bucket of water. A third heads toward the refectory. perhaps to prepare the midday meal. You realize that their lives are regulated by the bells you keep hearing in the distance. You glance at your wristwatch, hidden under your sleeve. The hands move steadily, but the time displayed is different from what you expect. You try to reconcile the difference. Perhaps time flows differently here because you are experiencing history, or perhaps the watch is the anchor that reminds you that your visit is temporary. You adjust it slightly, but the time remains the same. You decide not to worry for now. The bell rings again, a melodious, calm tone. It signals the approach of noon. The monk returns, gesturing for you to follow him up the tower. You climb wooden stairs, the steps creaking beneath your feet. The climb is steep. You pass a landing with a small window that frames the countryside. You see the market town in the distance, the castle, and the fields beyond. Smoke rises from chimneys. As you reach the top, you feel the weight of the wooden beams and the chill of the open air. The bell tower is open on all sides, allowing the sound of the bells to travel far. The bells hang from thick beams. Each is massive, cast from bronze. They are inscribed with names in Latin phrases. The monk introduces them. The largest is called Maria, the medium one, John, the smaller one, Gabriel. Each has its own tone. He shows you how they are rung. Thick ropes hang down, and the monks take turns pulling them. The effort is physical. Each pull sets the bell swinging, and the momentum builds. The monks coordinate their movements to create specific patterns. He explains that the pattern for midday prayer is 2 slow strikes on Maria, 3 quick on John, then 1 long strike on Gabriel. This pattern calls everyone to the refectory. He describes other patterns: fast ringing for a fire, a slow toll for a death, an irregular pattern for an attack, joyful peals for a wedding or a birth. The bells speak to everyone. They tell stories and hold the community together. Their voices carry across the fields, connecting isolated farms to the center of town. You begin to understand the mystery of the church bells. They are far more than clocks. They are language, tradition, and community. Standing in the bell tower, you feel the vibrations of the bells through your body. The sound is powerful yet comforting. You think of your wristwatch again, its steady ticking, and realize that while the watch measures time in hours and minutes, the bells measure time through events and community. It is a different way of being in time, one that is tied to seasons, rituals, and the rhythms of daily life. You thank the monk for his explanation and descend the tower. As you reach the bottom, the monastery bell continues to ring, calling monks to prayer. You step outside into the courtyard, the midday sun high and the sky beginning to clear. The breeze is cool, carrying the scent of herbs and distant wood smoke. You find yourself drawn back to the fountain. You sit on its stone edge, watching the water move. You think about everything you've seen: the market's vibrant colors, the craftsman's skilled hands, the children's laughter, the social hierarchies and guild pride, the importance of the bells, and the knowledge that time is not just measured by the hands of a watch, but by the rhythm of daily life. The discovery of your watch has reconnected you with your modern world, but the bells have rooted you here. You feel gratitude for the warmth of your wool tunic, the taste of bread and ale, the complexity of this society, the resilience of its people, and the beauty of their traditions. As the bell's vibrations fade, you hear the hum of bees in the garden again, the soft cluck of chickens, and the distant sound of the market. You take a deep breath, savoring the smells of herbs, earth, and smoke. The monk approaches and tells you that it is time to join the monks for their midday meal. You agree and follow him to the refectory. Inside, long wooden tables are set with bowls of stew, bread, and ale. The monks sit in silence as one reads from a manuscript. You listen to the words, Latin phrases that speak of humility and gratitude, though you may not fully understand them. The silence encourages mindfulness. You sit, eat, and observe. The meal is simple but nourishing: a stew of lentils and vegetables, bread, cheese, and a small piece of smoked fish. The ale is light. You chew slowly, tasting each component. The combination of tastes, earthy, salty, yeasty, grounds you. You watch the monks eating, their heads bowed. They look at peace. After the meal, you step outside. The sun has moved westward. Shadows lengthen. You know you must return to the market town. The monk reminds you that the path back will take you through the craftsman's quarter again. You leave the monastery, thanking him for his guidance. As you walk away, you glance back at the bell tower, its silhouette against the sky. The road to the town passes by fields of stubble where the harvest has been gathered. The ground is damp, and your shoes sink occasionally. You pass a shepherd with his flock. He carries a wooden crook, guiding the sheep with whistles and soft words. The sheep wear bells around their necks, smaller bells that jingle when they move. The shepherd greets you, his eyes kind. You exchange a few words about the weather and the coming winter. As you approach the town, the noise increases again. You hear the market, though now it is quieter than in the morning. Some vendors have packed up, others remain, still selling goods. A group of men stands near the church steps, talking about the Lord's steward and the rents they have paid. They shake their heads, mutter about fairness. A boy chases a dog. A woman scolds her child for stepping in mud. You pass by the inn where you started. The innkeeper's wife stands outside, sweeping the threshold. She greets you warmly, asking if you've eaten well. You tell her about the monastery and the bells. She nods, saying she hears them each day and knows exactly what each pattern means. She asks if you have found your wristwatch. You reach into your sleeve and show it to her, saying yes. She raises an eyebrow, clearly impressed by the object she has never seen before, but knows must be valuable. She tells you to keep it hidden. The sun is descending. You feel tired but invigorated. You think about everything you've experienced since waking up. Your modern life seems far away, yet it touches you with the watch on your wrist. You feel a sense of wonder at the connections between your time and this one, how each influences the other through knowledge, objects, and the human experience. As the afternoon progresses, you decide to walk back to your room at the inn. You climb the narrow stairs, minding your head on the low beams. In your room, the straw mattress looks inviting. You lie down, listening to the faint sounds of the market outside, the call of a vendor, a horse neighing, a laugh. You close your eyes briefly, not to sleep, but to rest. You think about the coming hours. There is still much to explore in this world. You have not yet visited the castle's great hall. You have not learned about the tax system or how the Lord interacts with the townspeople. You will explore the monastery gardens more and understand their medicinal purposes further. You will talk to a bell ringer, learning the language of the bells. For now you rest, letting the images of the day wash over you like the gentle water of the monastery fountain. While you rest, you hear the bell ring again, a pattern you recognize. A slow toll marking mid-afternoon. It calls monks to prayer and reminds townspeople of the passing time. You open your eyes and glance at your watch. The times still don't match, but you are beginning to accept the difference. Time here is not measured in minutes. It is measured in bells, meals, prayers, tasks, seasons. This realization comforts you. You stand and stretch. You feel the scratch of wool against your skin, the slight heaviness of the watch on your wrist. You walk back downstairs, ready to rejoin the world outside. You can smell stew cooking in the hearth, hear voices in the common room. People talk about the upcoming feast day, about buying extra candles, about repairing roofs before winter snows. Life continues, and you are part of it for now. You step outside once more. The light has changed. It is softer, golden, casting long shadows. You walk toward the edge of the town where the path leads to the river. You hear the rush of water over rocks. You see fishermen pulling nets, their faces lined from years of sun and wind. They call to each other, hauling in nets heavy with fish. You walk along the riverbank, the ground softer here, damp and covered in fallen leaves. As you walk, you come across a woman washing clothes in the river. She beats them against a smooth rock, then rinses them in the cold water. She sings softly, a tune in a language you don't recognize. The rhythm of her work and the flow of the river seem synchronized. She looks up and nods, then returns to her song. You continue following the river until it curves back toward the town. On the bank, you see a small group of children and teenagers collecting water in buckets. They laugh and splash each other. One boy tosses a pebble into the water, and the splash startles a duck. The duck flaps its wings and quacks indignantly. The children laugh harder. Their carefree moment is a respite from chores and responsibilities. As you walk, you pick up a smooth stone from the riverbank. It is cool and heavy in your hand. You wonder if someone in the future might pick up this same stone, and what stories it will have absorbed by then. You toss it into the water and watch the ripples spread outward. They intersect with other ripples from fish and ducks, forming complex patterns. The movement calms you. You turn back toward the town. The sun is now sinking toward the horizon. The air grows colder. You pull your cloak tighter around you. The smell of smoke becomes stronger as households light fires for the evening. The sound of the bell marks the hour. People begin to pack up their stalls in the market. They gather up leftover vegetables, pack away textiles, and load animals onto carts. The market slowly empties, leaving behind a few loiterers and stray animals. You return to the inn, greeted by the warmth of the fire. The innkeeper's wife serves you a mug of ale and a bowl of stew. The stew is hot, thick with lentils, cabbage, and bits of salted meat. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. The taste is earthy and comforting. You listen to the conversations around you. A merchant boasting about a successful deal. An older man telling a story of his youth. A young woman humming a tune as she cleans the tables. As the inn fills with travelers seeking shelter for the night, you find a corner table and observe. A group of pilgrims enters, dusty from the road. They wear badges indicating they have visited holy sites. Scallop shells from Santiago de Compostela, palm leaves from Jerusalem. They speak of distant lands and the hardships of travel. Their eyes reflect fatigue and determination. You realize that even in this era, people travel great distances for faith and curiosity. A troupe of minstrels arrives next. They carry lutes and pipes. They ask the innkeeper for permission to perform. He nods. Soon, music fills the air. The minstrel's fingers pluck the lute strings deftly. The melody is cheerful, the rhythm steady. People clap and tap their feet. One of the minstrels sings a ballad about a knight and a lady. You listen, transported by the story. After the music, a storyteller stands and begins a tale. His voice is clear and expressive. He tells of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. He speaks of bravery, honor, magic, and betrayal. The audience is enraptured. You feel the story wrap around you like a cloak. You know the story from your own time, but hearing it spoken aloud in this era adds layers of meaning. As the evening wears on, you feel the warmth of the fire and the heaviness of your eyelids. You climb the stairs to your room again. The straw mattress awaits. You lie down, feeling the rough wool blanket against your skin. You reflect on the day's experiences. The market, the craftsman's quarter, the monastery, the bell tower, the river, the inn. You think about the modern object on your wrist and the medieval bells that measure time so differently. You resolve to explore more tomorrow. You plan to follow the monk to the monastery garden and learn about medicinal herbs. You want to visit the scriptorium again and watch the monks illuminate manuscripts. You will go to the bell tower and talk with the bell ringer. You will wander through the castle's great hall and observe the nobility. There are still many mysteries to uncover. As sleep begins to claim you, you hear the church bells ring again. The pattern is long and slow, indicating the end of the day. The bells call people to vespers, the evening prayer. You listen to the tones, and you think about how different the bells sound from the ones in your world. You smile, knowing you are beginning to understand the language of the bells. You close your eyes, still fully immersed in the second-person perspective, feeling the textures, smelling the aromas, hearing the bells. The straw mattress beneath you is uncomfortable, but your mind is so full of wonder that you hardly notice. The story continues, and you know that by dawn you will fully appreciate why the church bells sound different here. For now, you rest, ready for the next hour of your journey through medieval times. You wake before dawn to the now familiar sound of roosters calling outside the wooden shutters. For a moment, in the haze of sleep, You forget where you are. Then the smell of smoke and war reminds you that you are still in the Merchant's Inn, still in 1347. You rub your eyes and sit up, feeling the straw shift beneath you. The wool blanket is rough against your skin, but it has kept you warm through the chilly night. You listen. The inn is quiet. The innkeeper's wife must still be asleep. The fire in the hearth below has burned down to embers. You can hear the occasional lowing of cattle and the distant murmur of voices. The early morning bells have not yet rung. You glance at your wristwatch in the dim light. It glows faintly, its face showing a time that feels wrong. The watch says it's nearly 6, but the faint light outside suggests it is earlier. You slip the watch back under your sleeve and stand, careful not to bump your head on the low ceiling. You pull on your wool tunic and hose, tie your leather shoes, and make your way down the narrow stairs. The common room is dark. Only the embers of the hearth offer light. You add a small log, coaxing flames. The fire crackles softly, the heat beginning to fill the room. You pour yourself a cup of ale from a barrel and eat a piece of bread left out from the previous night. The bread is slightly stale, but fills you. You decide to step outside for some fresh air and to watch the town awaken. You open the heavy wooden door and step into the quiet street. The sky is a pale grey, the faintest light touching the horizon. The air is crisp, and dew glistens on the thatch roofs and the muddy ground. You breathe deeply, noticing the scent of damp earth and smoke. The market square is empty. Only a few early risers move about, carrying buckets of water or feeding animals. The church bells ring, a slow, gentle pattern calling the town to the first prayer of the day. You decide to explore further afield this morning. You have seen the market, the craftsman's quarter, and the monastery, but you have not yet seen the farms and fields that sustain this town. You also remember hearing that public bathhouses exist, a surprise to you, as many think medieval people were filthy. You decide to find one. As you walk, you pass the well where villagers draw water. Women lift full buckets effortlessly, balancing them on wooden yokes across their shoulders. They smile at you, their breath visible in the cold air. You follow a path leading away from the market square, down a gentle slope toward the river and beyond. The path is muddy, lined with hedgerows. Small cottages dot the landscape, each surrounded by tiny gardens and pens for chickens or pigs. You see men and women moving about, beginning their morning chores. They tend to animals, milk goats, and feed geese. Children carry small bundles of firewood. The scent of manure and damp hay fills your nose. The path opens up onto fields. Here, the 3-field system becomes clear. One field lies fallow, covered in low-growing clover and grasses that will feed animals and replenish the soil. Another is freshly harvested, stubble protruding from the dark earth. The third is planted with winter wheat, the green shoots standing in neat rows. Oxen with wooden yokes rest near a heavy plough, which is a recent innovation in this part of England. The heavy plough's iron blade can cut deep into the clay soil, turning it over efficiently. A farmer stands beside his plough, talking to another man. He explains that before the heavy plough, the light ploughs used elsewhere could not handle the thick clay. The heavy plough's design, with a coulter to cut the soil, a share to turn it, and a mouldboard to lift it, makes farming here possible. The men are proud of their plough. They point to the harness and to the oxen, which stand patiently, their breath steaming in the cold morning air. You watch as they harness the oxen and begin to plough a new section of field. The farmer clucks his tongue, and the oxen lean forward. The plough's blade bites into the soil. The ground turns in a clean, steady line. Clumps of dirt break apart, revealing dark, rich earth. The smell of turned soil is earthy and strong. The men talk about how the 3-field system allows them to grow more food and feed more people. Their knowledge of crop rotation and soil health is sophisticated. You walk further along the path, and the sound of rushing water grows louder. You round a bend and see a windmill atop a small hill. Its wooden sails turn slowly in the breeze. The windmill is used to grind grain into flour. The miller stands outside, a bag of grain over his shoulder. He invites you to come inside. You climb a wooden ladder and feel the vibration of the mill's mechanisms. Inside, gears turn as the wind drives the millstones. The sound of grinding grain is constant. The miller explains how he manages the mill. He adjusts the angle of the sails based on the wind. He monitors the grain, ensuring the stones don't grind too hot, which could cause a fire. He collects flour in sacks. He tells you that milling is a prosperous trade, and his position is secure because the community needs him. He asks about your watch, noticing the strange object. You hesitate but explain that it tells time in hours and minutes. He is fascinated and shares that here time is measured in bells and tasks. He laughs at the idea of measuring minutes. Leaving the windmill, you follow the river upstream to where the bathhouse is rumored to be. The river bends and widens. Trees line its banks. Their leaves are turning shades of amber and rust, some already fallen. Ducks glide on the water, their heads dipping for food. You hear children's laughter. Soon you see a long, low building, with steam rising from an open roof vent. A sign carved with a simple symbol of a tub hangs near the entrance. This is the public bathhouse. You step inside, curious. The air is warm and humid, scented with herbs like lavender and thyme. The bathhouse is divided into sections, one for men, one for women. You choose the men's section and enter. Inside, a large wooden tub sits in the center, filled with steaming water. Smaller tubs are arranged around it. Men sit in the water, relaxing, talking, and washing. An attendant tends to the furnace that heats the water. You notice that people here take bathing seriously. They scrub with brushes and soap made from animal fat and ash. They use twigs from trees like hazel to clean their teeth, their gums massaged by the flexible twigs. You find an empty tub and sink into the warm water. The heat envelops you, easing the stiffness in your muscles. The feeling of soaking after a night on a straw mattress is luxurious. You pick up a twig and mimic the tooth cleaning technique, gently rubbing along your teeth. The twig tastes slightly bitter, but leaves your mouth feeling fresher than you expect. The men around you talk about the harvest, about a neighboring village's fair, about news from the coast. One man mentions hearing rumors of a sickness in the east. He calls it the pestilence. He says ships have brought news from Italy and the Middle East of a disease that kills quickly. The men nod, concerned. They trust God will protect them, but are wary. This conversation sends a chill down your spine. You know what is coming, the Black Death. But in this moment, the townspeople are unaware of the scale of what will soon arrive. After bathing, you dry off with a rough linen cloth and dress. The warmth from the water lingers. You thank the attendant and step out into the fresh air. The steam clings to your skin. You realize that the belief that medieval people were dirty is a myth. They value cleanliness and have created communal spaces to wash and socialize. You walk back toward town, feeling refreshed. Along the way, you pass a woman carrying a basket of fish. She stops to offer you one. The fish is salted and dried, preserved to last through winter. She explains that they catch fish in the river and salt them in barrels, storing them in cellars. They also preserve meat by smoking, salting, and drying. Cheese, butter, and bread are staples, along with vegetables that can be stored: cabbages, onions, and apples. In the absence of refrigeration, these methods are essential. You pause to bite into a piece of salted fish. It's chewy and intensely salty, but you can imagine how it would be a welcome source of protein in the depths of winter. You thank the woman and continue on your way. The path now leads you back into town by a different route, passing through a neighborhood you haven't explored. Here you notice more timber-framed houses, each with small plots of land. Women sit outside spinning wool on drop spindles. Their fingers are nimble, drawing out fibers and twisting them. They talk about their families, about the upcoming feast day, and about a neighbor's new child. A man repairs a wooden cart, tightening the spokes and oiling the wheels. The smell of wood shavings mixes with the scent of cooking from inside the houses. As you approach the town, you hear music. You follow the sound and discover a small square where a group of minstrels plays for the townspeople. The music is lively. People dance in a circle. They skip, clap, and laugh. You join the outer circle, feeling the rhythm. The dance steps are simple, repeated patterns. You enjoy the sense of community, of people coming together to celebrate life despite the hard work and the looming winter. Beyond the music, you see children playing near a large wooden structure. It's a stocks, a form of punishment where people are locked by their ankles and sometimes hands. It's empty now, but it reminds you that justice is public and often swift. Crime includes theft, not paying taxes, or causing injury. Punishments can be harsh, yet the public nature of it also serves as a deterrent. You wonder what it would feel like to live in a world where the community's judgment is immediate and visible. You continue toward the castle's outer walls. You pass by a row of shops run by the Merchant Guild. These shops sell imported goods, spices, wine, fine cloth. A man shows you a bolt of fabric. It's silk, shimmering in the sunlight, far more expensive than the woolen cloth you've been wearing. He tells you it came from the East, carried along trade routes that span continents. He explains that merchants here have credit agreements with bankers in Italy and Flanders. Letters of credit allow them to trade without carrying large sums of money. The financial system is more complex than you expected. As you admire the silk, a woman approaches selling dyed wool thread. She holds up hanks of deep blue, achieved with woad, and bright red from madder root. She tells you she loves working with color. That color is important in life. Her cheeks flush with pride. She asks about the fabric you're looking at, and guesses correctly that you cannot afford it. You both laugh. You walk away, passing a group of boys practicing with wooden swords. They swing and parry, imitating knights they've seen. A man coaches them, correcting their stances. He reminds them to respect those of higher rank, to show deference when a noble passes, and to serve faithfully if they ever become squires. The social hierarchy is ingrained in them early. You decide to visit a noble's house within the castle walls. You walk to the gate and ask a guard if you may observe the great hall. He looks at you skeptically, but the monk from the monastery appears, recognizes you, and speaks on your behalf. The guard nods and lets you in. The great hall is long and wide, with a high ceiling supported by wooden beams. A large fire burns in a hearth at the center, smoke rising to an opening in the roof. Tapestries hang on the walls, depicting scenes from battles and biblical stories. The Lord's table sits on a raised platform at one end. A long table extends down the hall. The floor is strewn with fresh rushes and herbs to mask odors. Servants move about, setting places with wooden trencher plates. They bring in pewter pitchers of ale and wine, platters of meat, and loaves of bread. The Lord sits at the high table, surrounded by his family and closest retainers. They wear fine clothes. The Lord's tunic is embroidered with gold thread. His wife's gown is trimmed with fur. They hold dogs on their laps, small, finely bred hounds. At a table near the hearth, you see lesser nobles and favored tenants. A jester performs tricks, juggling and telling jokes. People laugh and toss him coins. Minstrels play music. The Lord's steward stands near the door, checking the food, ensuring the Lord's comfort. He is the one you saw yesterday collecting rents. He notices you, but is too busy to speak. You notice the food being served. Roasted meat, probably from a deer or boar. Pottage made with grains and vegetables. Fresh bread. Cheese. There are no forks. People eat with knives, spoons, and their fingers. The Lord and his family use a more delicate tableware set, while others use wooden trenchers. Dogs roam under the table waiting for scraps. The atmosphere is loud but relaxed. From your position, you listen to the conversations. They talk about politics, the king's actions in France, the upcoming winter, and the steward's new policies. Someone mentions a fair in a neighboring town. They also talk about their children's marriages and alliances. You realize how interconnected land, marriage, and politics are. As the meal continues, a messenger arrives. He looks tired and dirty from the road. He kneels before the Lord and whispers something. The Lord's face darkens. He stands, raises his hand, and calls for silence. He announces that there is news of a sickness in the south, near the ports. It is spreading rapidly. He advises caution. People murmur. The conversation shifts to concern. The pestilence has been mentioned again. and fear begins to take root. You watch the reaction. Some people cross themselves. Others whisper prayers. The Lord tells his steward to ensure that the stores are stocked and to restrict travel. The mood becomes tense. You know from your own time that the Black Death will soon devastate Europe. You feel a heaviness, but remind yourself that you are here to observe and learn, not to change history. You leave the great hall quietly, following the monk. He senses your unease. He tells you that fear is natural, but that life continues. He leads you back toward the monastery. On the way, he points out a smaller building, separate from the main houses. It is the bathhouse reserved for the nobles. He mentions that in addition to public bathhouses, there are private baths. The noble baths are luxurious, with scented water and heated floors, reserved for those who can afford them. As you approach the monastery, you hear the bells ringing again. The pattern is different, more urgent. You recall that this pattern signals a fire. You see smoke in the distance, near the edge of the town. People rush toward it with buckets of water. You join them, helping to form a chain. Water is passed from hand to hand, thrown onto the thatch roof of a small house that has caught fire. The fire crackles and spreads quickly through the dry thatch. But because of the quick response, and because the town is prepared, the fire is contained. Men climb onto the roof and beat the flames with wet cloths. Women bring additional buckets. The smell of burning thatch fills the air, mixed with the scent of smoke and wet earth. The bell continues to ring until the fire is out. As the fire is extinguished, people breathe sighs of relief. They talk about how the bells saved them. Without the bells, the fire might have spread. The house is damaged but not destroyed. The owner thanks everyone. This experience underscores how vital the bells are, how central to the community's safety. After the excitement, you decide to explore the guild halls more deeply. You walk to the hall of the Weavers' Guild. Inside, you see looms with fabric in various stages of completion. Women and men work side by side, moving their shuttles back and forth. The clack of looms is rhythmic. They explain that weaving is a skilled craft, requiring years of practice. They also talk about guild secrets, techniques passed down only to members. At the Coopers Guild, coopers gather to share information about their trade. They discuss supply and demand, prices of wood and iron, and repairs. They also talk about apprentices and how to train them. They take pride in their workmanship, knowing their barrels are essential for storing food and drink. You notice a subtle tension between guild members and unlicensed craftsmen. A man outside the guild hall sells barrels without the guild's mark. He is a rogue cooper. Guild members glare at him. There is a strict system governing who can make and sell goods. This ensures quality, but also protects the guild members' livelihood. You sense the potential for conflict. You spend time talking with a chandler, who tells you about rendering fat for tallow and collecting beeswax. She mentions that bees are kept in hives near the orchards, and monks care for them. She also shares that candles are used not just for light, but for measuring time. A candle can burn for a known duration, and people mark the wax at intervals. She shows you a candle with knots tied in the wick at measured distances. Each knot burns down at a known rate, helping to time tasks. This method is ingenious and, like your watch, measures time differently. As the afternoon progresses, you decide to return to the monastery to learn more about the scriptorium and the medicinal gardens. The path to the monastery is familiar now. The monk leads you to the gardens, where more monks are working. They greet you. One monk invites you to help harvest herbs. You kneel beside him, pulling sage from the soil. Your fingers smell fragrant as you gather the leaves. He explains that sage is used for sore throats and digestion. He shows you comfrey, which is used to heal wounds and broken bones, yarrow to stop bleeding, and chamomile to soothe nerves. The knowledge of medicinal plants is extensive. Monks copy texts from ancient scholars like Galen and Hippocrates, as well as from Arabic physicians. They combine this knowledge with local experience. In the scriptorium, you watch a young monk prepare parchment. He takes a sheepskin, cleans it, stretches it on a frame, and scrapes it until it's smooth. The smell of animal skin is strong. He cuts the parchment into sheets and stacks them. Another monk grinds pigments. He uses a pestle and mortar to crush lapis lazuli into a fine powder. The blue pigment glows on his fingers. He mixes it with egg white to make paint. You watch as he paints a capital letter on a page. His hand is steady. The color is vibrant. He adds gold leaf using a tiny brush. The gold catches the light. He explains that the process is meditative, that each stroke is a prayer. The scriptorium is quiet, except for the scratch of quills and the soft footsteps of monks. You appreciate the dedication required to produce a single manuscript. Each book is a treasure. Around 85 minutes into your exploration, you make an interesting discovery. While watching the monks write, you notice a small, worn book lying on a shelf, apart from the others. It looks out of place. You ask the monk about it. He smiles knowingly and says, "It is not a religious text, but a collection of stories, some ancient, some new, gathered by the monks for entertainment and education." He allows you to leaf through it. You open the book carefully. The pages smell old, and the script is neat. The stories include fables you recognize, tales of Aesop, parables of wise animals, and stories of heroes who travel through time and space. One particular story catches your attention. It tells of a traveler who falls asleep in his own time and wakes up in another era. He spends 3 days among people long gone, learning their ways and appreciating their struggles, before returning to his time with a deeper understanding. The parallels to your own experience are uncanny. You look up, eyes wide. The monk, seeing your surprise, explains that such tales are common in medieval literature. They teach lessons about humility, the value of knowledge, and the transience of life. He tells you that people have long wondered about time travel, about moving between eras. You feel a connection across centuries to people who dreamed of similar experiences. You close the book gently and thank the monk. This discovery re-engages your mind. It makes you feel part of a longer tradition of storytellers and dreamers. You wonder if your presence here might one day become a story told to others. Outside, the afternoon light begins to soften. You leave the scriptorium and head toward the bell tower. You climb the familiar stairs and look out over the countryside. You notice the fields in their divisions, the windmill turning in the distance, the smoke rising from chimneys, the people moving like ants. The bells hang silent for now, but the ropes sway gently in the breeze. You reach out to touch a bell. Its surface is cold and smooth. You feel the grooves of its inscription. You think about how many hands have touched it, how many ears have heard its song. Descending from the tower, you walk to the orchard. The sun casts long shadows through the rows of trees. You pick another apple, enjoying the crispness. A group of children runs through the trees, playing hide and seek. One boy stops to show you a carved whistle he made from a willow branch. He blows softly, producing a sweet, airy sound. You compliment him. He grins and runs off to hide again. As you head back toward town, you pass the shepherd again. He has moved his sheep to another pasture. He uses a whistle and a series of calls to direct his sheepdog, which expertly herds the flock. The dog moves with precision, responding to subtle signals. The shepherd's skill in managing his animals impresses you. You realize that this relationship between man and dog is ancient. You walk past the communal oven, where women are baking bread for the evening. The smell is heavenly. They greet you, offering you a small loaf. It is warm in your hands. You break it open, steam rising, and take a bite. The crust is crunchy, the inside soft and flavorful. They ask you if you have heard the bell's various meanings. You nod, explaining what the monk told you. They tell you that the bells are part of their daily rhythm, like the sun and the seasons. They cannot imagine life without them. The sun begins to set. The sky turns orange and pink. A bell rings, calling people to vespers. You decide to attend the evening service. You walk to the church, joining a stream of villagers. Inside, candles flicker, casting a warm glow on the stone walls and wooden pews. The smell of incense fills the air. Monks chant in Latin, their voices low and harmonious. You sit near the back, watching and listening. The chant rises and falls, creating a calming atmosphere. The congregation sits or kneels, their hands folded in prayer. The priest speaks of gratitude, of community, of preparing for the coming winter. He mentions that the bells will ring differently if trouble comes, reminding everyone to listen. The words are simple, but the meaning is profound. As the service ends, people file out quietly. They nod to one another, exchanging simple greetings. You step outside into the cool evening air. The sky is darker now, the first stars appearing. The town feels peaceful. You look at your watch. It shows a time that is again different from what you perceive. Time here seems to slip and slide, unanchored to your watch's precise measurement. You walk back to the inn, thinking about everything you've learned today. The heavy plough, the windmill, the bathhouse, the medicinal herbs, the social hierarchy, the financial systems, the guilds, the stories of time travel, the rumor of pestilence. You think about how your modern perspectives color your observations, how you both admire and sometimes recoil at what you see. At the inn, the common room is lively. Travelers have arrived, bringing news from other towns. A man speaks of seeing a comet. He believes it is a sign of impending change. Another talks about a festival where animals are blessed by a priest. A woman sings a ballad about a sailor lost at sea. The stories weave together, creating a tapestry of medieval life. You take a seat near the fire. The heat feels good after the cool evening air. You sip a mug of ale and eat stew, savoring the rich flavors. The innkeeper sits at your table for a moment, asking about your day. You tell him about the bathhouse, the windmill, the plough. He nods, proud of his town. He mentions that the bathhouse will be particularly busy before feast days. He laughs at the idea that people in the future might think medieval people never bathed. As the evening progresses, more stories are told. A man recounts a ghost story about a spirit that walks the castle walls on cold nights. A woman tells a cautionary tale about a man who failed to respect the guild's rules and was exiled. You listen, fascinated. The stories carry moral lessons, history, and entertainment. They are a window into the values and fears of the time. You feel the pull of sleep. You climb the stairs to your room. The straw mattress awaits. You lie down, feeling the familiar scratch of wool and the unevenness of the straw. You look at your watch one more time. The hands glow faintly. The time is again slightly off from what you perceive. You realize that the watch may not be measuring time here as it should. Time here is different, tied to bells, tasks, seasons. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of the inn, voices, laughter, the crackle of the fire, fade into the background. You think about the stories you read in the monastery, about the traveler who woke in another time. You wonder if you are living that story. You know that tomorrow will bring more discoveries, perhaps even the revelation promised by the mysterious bells. For now, you rest, ready for the next chapter of your journey. You wake slowly, your body wrapped in wool and straw, the faint glow of dawn slipping through the cracks in the wooden shutters. The roosters crow outside, and you hear the low rumble of distant voices. You open your eyes and remember, with a rush of excitement, that this is not your modern bedroom. You are still in 1347, in an English market town, on the edge of the medieval world. You sit up, feeling the roughness of the blanket, and glance at your wristwatch. The hands glow faintly, but the time displayed seems wrong. Time here is fluid, measured by bells and tasks, not by numbers on a dial. You pull on your clothes and head downstairs. The inn is quiet, but the fire burns low in the hearth, casting a soft light. The innkeeper nods at you as he kneads dough. His wife pours ale into cups, preparing for the morning rush. You take a piece of bread and some cheese, thanking them. You decide to spend this day exploring the monastery more fully, and finally discovering the secret of the bells. Stepping outside, the air feels crisp. Your breath clouds in front of you. Dew coats the grass and cobblestones, making them glisten. The sky is a pale blue, promising a clear day. You hear the church bells tolling the morning prayer, their sound deep and resonant. You know now that each pattern of ringing has meaning, but you have not yet met the person responsible for weaving those patterns. You follow the path you took yesterday toward the monastery. The road is familiar now, lined with hedgerows and small cottages. Smoke rises from chimneys. Women draw water from the well. Children chase each other in the street, their laughter bright. As you approach the monastery gates, you see the monk who guided you before. He smiles warmly and gestures for you to follow him. Inside the monastery courtyard, the morning is already busy. Monks tend to the gardens, pruning herbs and picking vegetables. A few gather apples in baskets. One feeds chickens. The air smells of rosemary and damp soil. The bells ring again, signaling the monks to prayer. The monk you are with tells you that before you climb the bell tower, he wants to show you something in the library. You enter a small room lined with shelves. The shelves hold scrolls and codices wrapped in cloth. The light filters through a small window, illuminating particles of dust dancing in the air. The monk picks up a small manuscript and opens it carefully. Inside are sketches of bells and diagrams of patterns. Each bell is named and described. The largest bell is called Maria, dedicated to Mary. The medium bell is called John, and the smallest, Gabriel. The manuscript details the patterns used for births, deaths, fires, festivals, and prayers. The monk explains that these patterns are passed down through generations. Each bell has a personality. Maria, the largest, has a deep, solemn tone. John is brighter, and Gabriel is light and quick. Together, they speak a language the entire town understands. He tells you that the bells are rung by a man who has served the community for decades. The monk invites you to meet him. They climb the wooden stairs of the bell tower. The steps are worn smooth by centuries of feet. The smell of wood and metal fills the air. You emerge into a space filled with light and air. The bell ringer stands near the ropes. He is an older man with strong arms and a kind face. His hands are calloused. He greets you warmly and asks if you have heard his bells. You nod. He tells you that his name is William, and that he has been ringing the bells for 40 years. He learned from his father, who learned from his father before him. He knows each bell as if it were a friend. He shows you the ropes, each connected to a bell. He explains how the weight of the bell and the timing of the swing determine the tone and the rhythm. He demonstrates a pattern: 2 slow pulls on Maria, 3 quick on John, and a single strike on Gabriel. The sound reverberates through the tower and out into the town. William tells you that the bells are more than instruments. They are the heartbeat of the town. He recalls times of joy when the bells rang out for weddings, births, and feast days. He remembers times of sorrow when the bells tolled for funerals and disasters. He talks about the great fire that burned half the market years ago, and how the bells summoned everyone to fight it. He recounts the day a distant village was attacked by bandits, and how the bells warned the town to prepare. You ask William why the bells sound different here than they do in your time. He smiles and says that, in your world, bells may be automated, run by electricity or machines. They ring on schedule, their patterns uniform. Here, the bells are rung by human hands. The patterns are lived. The bells have names, and those names carry weight. The bells speak to the community with intention. When William rings them, he is telling a story, sending a message, and connecting people. William invites you to pull the rope. You grip it. The rope feels thick and rough. You take a deep breath and pull. The bell resists at first, then yields. It swings, and the sound is deep, resonant, and full. It vibrates through your hands, down your arms, into your chest. You feel connected to everyone in the town. You pull again, coordinating with William, following his lead. Together, you ring a pattern. The sound rings out over the fields. After a few minutes, you step back, your arms tired but exhilarated. William claps you on the shoulder and thanks you. He tells you that you have a good rhythm. He then shows you how the bells can be used to measure time. He has marked the ropes with knots at different lengths. Each knot represents a time interval. By pulling the rope to a certain knot at regular intervals, he can measure hours, just like the candle with knots. The bells and knots together create a clock of sorts, but one that requires human engagement. As you leave the bell tower, you feel a deep sense of awe. The bell's mystery has been revealed. They are not just instruments, but communicators, storytellers, and guardians. You understand why they sound different. They are alive with meaning, with names, with intention. They embody the heartbeat of the community. connecting everyone through sound. You step down from the tower and walk into the garden. The wind rustles the leaves in the apple trees. The fountain in the courtyard gurgles gently. The morning sun warms your face. You decide to take a walk beyond the monastery, toward the hills. You want to see the countryside from a higher perspective. The path leads you along the river. The water flows steadily over rocks, its sound calming. You pass fishermen casting nets. They wave. The fields stretch out like a patchwork quilt, divided by hedgerows and stone walls. Sheep graze on the hillsides, their bells jingling softly. You climb higher, your shoes sinking into damp earth. The air smells of grass and wildflowers. At the crest of a hill, you stop to catch a breath and look back. The town is laid out before you. The castle with its imposing walls, the market square, now busy with midday activity, the monastery with its gardens and bell tower. The wind blows gently, carrying the distant sound of the bells. You sit on a flat rock, feeling its coldness through your tunic, and watch as the clouds drift. You think about the people here, the innkeeper and his wife, the farmers, the craftsmen, the children, the monks, the bell ringer. You think about how their lives are structured around the bells, the seasons, the communal tasks. You think about your modern world, where time is measured by seconds and minutes, where schedules and deadlines dominate. The contrast is striking. You reach for your watch again. It ticks steadily. The hands move. But here, on this hill, the numbers seem arbitrary. You watch the shadows move across the landscape, the sun climbing higher. Time passes in the movement of light and shadow, in the ring of bells, in the tasks completed. You decide to take off the watch and hold it in your hand. The leather strap feels smooth, the metal face cool. You place the watch on the rock beside you and leave it there for a moment. You close your eyes, letting the breeze brush your face. You listen to the river, the bird song, the faint bells. You think about the story you read in the monastery, the traveler who moved through time and returned with wisdom. You feel connected to that traveler. You wonder what wisdom you will take back. When you open your eyes, you look at the watch. Its hands have stopped. The second hand is frozen. You pick it up and shake it gently, but it does not move. You smile, realizing that here, time has truly stopped. For your watch, at least. Perhaps it is the magic of this place, or perhaps the watch simply needs winding. But the symbolic meaning strikes you. Your modern measure of time has ceased functioning in this medieval world. You strap the watch back on your wrist, now with the awareness that it is no longer measuring time. It has become a reminder of where you come from, and a symbol of the fluidity of time. In this moment, the watch is just a bracelet. You stand and begin to walk back down the hill. The path is steep, and you take care. You pass a man carrying a basket of apples. He tells you he's heading to the market to sell them. You wish him luck. He smiles and offers you an apple. You accept, grateful for his generosity. As you near the town, you hear laughter. A group of girls is gathered near a stream, washing clothes and singing. Their voices are bright and melodic. You stop to listen. They sing about love, about seasons, about the mundane beauty of daily life. One girl notices you and waves. You wave back. The simple joy in their song warms your heart. You pass the bathhouse again. Steam rises from its vents. You think about your experience there and how different it is from your modern showers. Here, bathing is communal, social, and part of a routine that is centuries old. You marvel at the continuity of human rituals across time. Entering the town, you notice that a small crowd has gathered near the guild hall. A traveling merchant has arrived with goods from far away. He displays fabrics of vibrant colors, spices that fill the air with exotic scents, and small carved ivory pieces. People gather around, eager to see and possibly purchase these rare items. The merchant tells stories of deserts, palaces, and seafaring vessels. His tales spark imaginations. You listen as he describes the Silk Road, a network of trade routes connecting Europe to Asia. He speaks of caravans crossing vast deserts, of cities like Damascus and Baghdad, of spices from India and silks from China. You realize that although we call this the Middle Ages, the world is interconnected. Trade and knowledge flow across continents. The merchant's stories remind you of your own ability to travel through time. After watching for a while, you walk toward the river where the fishermen are unloading their catch. You sit on the bank, watching them work. They sort fish, separating larger ones from smaller ones, removing eels and crabs. The fish glisten in the sunlight. The men laugh and joke, teasing each other about who catches the biggest fish. They tell stories of storms and calm seas. A fisherman offers you a small, fresh fish to taste. He shows you how to clean it and cook it over an open flame. You help gather sticks and build a small fire on the riverbank. The fire crackles as you place the fish on a flat stone near the flames. You watch as the skin blisters and peels. The smell is mouth-watering. Once it's cooked, you eat. The fish is tender and sweet. The fisherman asks about the object on your wrist. You explain again, telling him it is a watch that measures time. He holds it up, fascinated by the hands and the way they move. You tell him that it has stopped. He laughs and says that perhaps it decided to follow the rhythm of the bells instead. He hands the watch back to you, and you appreciate his humor. As the afternoon wanes, you decide to visit the castle walls one last time. You climb the path to the battlements, where you can see over the town and the countryside. The guard recognizes you and allows you to pass. You stand on the wall, feeling the stone beneath your hands. The view is breathtaking. The shadows stretch long. The setting sun paints the landscape gold. You walk along the wall, listening to the wind. The air is cooler now. The smell of smoke from evening fires drifts upward. You pass by a corner where a young guard stands, gazing out. He tells you that he watches for signals from neighboring villages. He points to a hill with a small tower in the distance. He says that if danger comes, a fire will be lit there, and he will light a fire here to warn the town. The bells will ring accordingly. The guard talks about his life. He is the son of a farmer, but he chose to serve as a guard to escape the hardships of farming. He receives a small wage and food. He misses his family, but feels pride in protecting the town. He dreams of becoming a knight, though he knows it is unlikely. He tells you about training, about practicing with swords and bows, about the strict discipline required. You leave the guard and walk toward the castle gardens. Noble women stroll through, talking softly. They smell the roses and pick herbs. Their gowns sweep the ground gracefully. You watch as they pluck rosemary and lavender to scent their chambers. A child runs through the garden, chasing butterflies. His nurse calls him back. The scene is peaceful. You return to the monastery as the sun sets. The sky is awash of pink and purple. The bell rings for vespers. You join the monks in the chapel. The candlelight flickers, casting shadows on the stone walls. The air is thick with incense. The chant begins, low and melodic. It fills the space, resonating in your chest. You close your eyes and let the sound wash over you. After the service, the monk who has guided you walks with you to the garden. The stars appear in the darkening sky. The moon rises, casting silver light on the herbs and trees. The wind rustles the leaves. He asks if you understand now why the bells are so important. You nod. You explain that you see how they are not just instruments, but voices of the community, telling stories, warning of danger, marking time through events rather than numbers. He smiles. He asks about your watch. You show him that it has stopped. He takes it in his hands and examines it closely. He appreciates the craftsmanship, but shakes his head. He says that here, the watch has lost its power. Only the bells hold the true measure of time. He hands it back to you and suggests that perhaps your watch will work again when you return to your own time. You sit together by the fountain. The water splashes softly into the basin. The sound is soothing. The monk speaks of his life, of copying manuscripts, tending the garden, ringing the bells. He talks about the peace he finds in routine, in prayer, and in community. He says that while the future holds wonders he cannot imagine, like your watch, there is beauty in the simplicity of the present. You look up at the stars. You can see constellations you recognize. Orion, the Big Dipper. The night sky is clear, free of city lights. The stars are bright, almost close enough to touch. You feel a sense of timelessness. The same stars have shone over this town for centuries. People have looked up at them, wondered about their lives, told stories about them. You feel connected to everyone who has ever looked at the night sky. As you sit, a soft breeze blows. It carries the scent of herbs and wood smoke. You feel sleepy. The monk tells you that it is time for the monks to retire. He invites you to sleep in the monastery's guest quarters tonight. You agree, feeling honored. He leads you to a small cell with a simple bed, a blanket, and a candle. You thank him and lie down. The straw mattress is thin but comfortable enough after the day's experiences. You blow out the candle. Darkness envelops the room. You listen to the distant sound of the bells, now silent for the night, and the gentle breeze rustling the trees. You think about everything you've experienced: the market, the craftsman's quarter, the monastery, the bathhouse, the fields, the hilltop, the bell tower, the castle, the river, the stories, the music, the food. You think about the modern object you carry on your wrist and how it stopped. You think about the bells and how they speak to everyone. Your mind wanders to the story in the manuscript about the traveler who moved through time. You realize that you, too, will carry these experiences back to your own time. You feel gratitude for the lessons learned, that time can be measured in many ways, that community and tradition give life meaning, that innovation and tradition coexist in every era, that human nature is constant across centuries. You feel at peace. As sleep takes you, you hear a distant sound, a faint bell ringing, perhaps a night watchman making rounds. It is rhythmic, purposeful. You feel yourself drifting, your breathing slowing. The last thought in your mind is of the bells, their patterns, their names, and their messages. You smile, knowing that you have solved the mystery that was hinted at on your first night. Why the church bells sound different here. They sound different because they are alive, because they have names and personalities, because they are run by hand with intention, because they carry stories and messages that connect everyone. In your dreams, you see images of the town, the market square bustling with life, the windmill turning against a blue sky, the bell tower standing tall, the river glistening in the sunlight, the castle walls glowing in the sunset. You hear the bells ringing patterns that convey joy, sorrow, warning, celebration. You see the face of the monk, the smile of the innkeeper's wife, the eyes of the craftsman, the laughter of the children. You sleep deeply, and when you wake, you feel a gentle warmth on your face. The sun has risen. The sounds of the modern world filter through your window. You are back in your bed, in your own time. For a moment, you wonder if it was all a dream. But then you glance at your wrist. Your watch is ticking again. The hands show the correct time. You smile, knowing that while you are back in your own era, the experience was real. You recall the bell's language. You remember the textures, smells, and sounds of medieval life. You remember the people and the stories. You carry a new appreciation for the passage of time, for the rhythm of life, for the voices that connect communities. You understand that those centuries separate you from the people of 1347. Their hopes, fears, joys, and challenges mirror your own. The bells continue to ring in your mind, reminding you of the timeless nature of human experience. This concludes your journey to medieval times. You now know why the church bells sound different here, and why their patterns are more than just markers of time. They are the heartbeat of a community. They have names, personalities, and stories, and they have brought you closer to the essence of what it means to be human, regardless of era. Thank you for traveling through time. May the bells in your life ring with meaning and connection, and may the lessons of the past enrich your present.